What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video of Hockey Never Stops. In this video, we're going to be looking at 3 trades that would totally make sense for Jack Eichel. And it is important to note that we are talking about a 24-year-old center in the league who is a first-line player and has a long extension left on his contract still. And with the cap not going up for the next couple of years, trading Jack Eichel is going to be really hard due to his really high cap hit. And before we get into the video, please leave a like, leave a comment down below if I missed any teams and that maybe you recommend that I should have put in this video. And without further ado, let's get right into the first team. And that first team is going to be the New York Rangers. Now, honestly, out of all 3 teams that I picked here, I think this makes the most sense just because Jack Eichel in New York totally makes sense. He just seems like the player that would really want to play in a high flying market like that. We saw what Panarin really wanted, and the New York Rangers are just on the verge of being a very good team in the NHL. Now, the trade proposal I have here is obviously Jack Eichel and just Eichel going to the New York Rangers, and then Kaapo Kakko, Philip Hedl, Nils Lundqvist, and a 2021 first round pick going to the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I think with Eichel, his value is probably at an all-time lowest at the moment, so there's going to be less leverage on the Buffalo Sabres end, but I think that they're going to be targeting at least a top 4 defenseman that can play right now or within the next couple of years, a 2021 first-round pick, and a player that can play on the roster going right away into next season. And as for value-wise, the New York Rangers offer a lot here. You're dealing with Kaapo Kakko, who could be a top-line player going forward. We know it really hasn't worked out in New York, but he's only 20 years of age, and he could be a cornerstone piece going forward for the Buffalo Sabres. Now, losing a center in Jack Eichel, you're going to be trying to want to make that up. Now, they already have Dylan Cousins and Casey Middlestat going forward, but we don't really know if Cousins is going to be a full-time center as well as Middlestat. And Middlestat actually had a pretty good year this year, so we're going to see maybe if he plays a second-line center role next year. But Philip Hedl is going to offer up that depth, especially on the third line and maybe on the second line going forward because he's still pretty young at only 22 years of age. Now, that first round pick is probably going to be between pick number 10 and pick number 15. So we'll throw that into the equation and Buffalo can just stack up the prospects. And then Nils Lundqvist, who spent 3 years developing and coming out of the 2018 draft, he, I think, in my opinion, has a pretty high ceiling as a top 4 defenseman. Probably not a top 2 pairing defenseman, but I think that Buffalo could be a very good fit for him and he could fit nicely on the second pair going into next year. And they already traded Brandon Montour. Colin Miller's probably gone this offseason. And Rasmus Ristolainen has to be gone pretty soon because he's not part of the solution in Buffalo, in my opinion. And obviously you want to support Dahlin. So getting another Swede in there, Nils Lundqvist, is going to shore up that defense core, even though it's still looking pretty bad at the moment. Now, for the second team that I think could take a huge stab at Jack Eichel is the Carolina Hurricanes. And in my opinion, the Hurricanes are going to go and win the cup this year. But if they don't, let's say they get knocked out of the second round, I feel like they could go for a huge swing at Jack Eichel for a number 1 center. I know they have Aho already, but could you imagine Aho and Eichel in the same line? Now, here's my trade proposal here. We're going to have to probably sacrifice Andrei Svechnikov here. Now, I know that's crazy to think about. He's an upcoming RFA, and he kind of just had a down year, and he's probably in the Hurricanes' future plans. I know. But at the same time here, we are talking about Jack Eichel. Now, Andrei Svechnikov would fit perfectly into the Buffalo Sabres' future plans as a winger and that has played 3 years in the NHL so far. He's only 21. He needs a new contract, and the Sabres could absolutely lock him up long term if he wants to. But also going to the Buffalo Sabres is Marty Necas, who has had a great year in Carolina. Now, obviously, people are going to say they're not going to give up Necas, but you're getting Jack Eichel here. You have to give up some quality players. And this could be a perfect solution for Buffalo going forward if they want to keep a center there. You know, Marty Necas is perfectly in the plans as well. He's 22 years of age. He needs a contract next summer, and he's going to be a top 6 center just for years to come. And that's perfect for Buffalo as a replacement. As well, I'm not done here yet. You're going to get Brady Shea. Now, Brady Shea has 3 years left on his contract. And down the left side in Buffalo, you have Rasmus Dahlin and then Jake McCabe, who might lead this offseason, I think. Brady Shea could be very solid on the second pair next year and for the next 2 years after that. And, you know, even if Buffalo sucks again for the next 3 years, that's a good guy to just eat up your minutes, and then maybe the fans could just harp on him for the next 2 years. Also to add, I'm going to throw in the 2021 first round pick, which will probably be in the 20s this year. And I know people are going to be like, oh, they're not going to get these players, but you can't just throw in a bunch of throwaways to get Jack Eichel. I'm sorry. And I'm really loving what the Carolina Hurricanes are doing at the moment, but could you just imagine this as a lineup with Sebastian Aho, Eichel, and Teravainen on the first line, Niederreiter, Trocheck, and Seth Jarvis, that's if he makes the team next year, Brock McGinn, Jordan Stahl, and Jesper Fast, Martin Geekie, and Fogle. Now that is just a very deep forward core. And you could even switch it around, putting Eichel as the first line center and Aho as the second line center. And with the last team that I think that can acquire Jack Eichel is a little bit unrealistic, I'd say, because they are in the same division and they are on the upswing. And I feel like Buffalo wouldn't want to deal their franchise center to them. But on paper, it makes sense. And they have the value to go back the other way. And that is the Ottawa Senators. Now, as a Sens fan, this might come across as a little biased, but I'm going to explain why I think this might make sense for them. Now, with the Sens going forward, they have Tim Stützle, but I think he's better on the off wing on the left side, and having Jack Eichel down the middle can simplify that for the Sens going forward, and they won't have to pressure Stützle into being a 200-foot player as much as they need to. So, starting off the trade proposal here, I'm going to throw in Jake Sanderson there. Now, Jake Sanderson, a top 5 pick from last year's draft, had a great season in the NCAA, and he's going back there next year. Now, when you're looking at Buffalo's depth on the blue line, it's not looking very good. And if you get Jake Sanderson in there next year, he's going to be a perfect complementary piece for Rasmus Dahlin. I think that they could have the makings of one of the best blue lines down the road if they have Rasmus Dahlin develop into a star number 1 D-man and Jake Sanderson being there as the safety number 2. You have Dahlin getting all the points on the power play, and you have Sanderson shutting down the top opponents and playing a lot of minutes. And it's not like Sanderson can't provide offense. I think at his peak, he'll probably be a 50-point defenseman, but he's probably set to play 25 minutes a night and score 30 to 50 points, I think, throughout his career. Now, also in the trade, I think they're going to throw in Colin White there. I feel like they're going to try and get Colin White's contract off the books sooner rather than later. However, I think they're going to try and retain some of that salary just so that it will be easier to go through. Now, Colin White, I think, deserves more of an opportunity in the top 6, and Buffalo has some pretty good wingers there that he could play with, and as an elevated role, he could realize his full potential. As well, I think if you have Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk on the left wing going forward for the Sens, I don't think you need a prospect like Roby Harventi, who I think has a pretty high ceiling, and I think that could be a good boomer bust player for the Sabres. He's very raw, and he definitely has top 6 potential, but it's going to take him a couple years. But at the moment, his value is pretty high, and he had a good year as an 18-year-old in the Liga. And I'm still going to throw in the 2021 draft pick here, where I think the Sens will finish bottom 10 in the league and potentially win the draft lottery. Now, if that goes up to the top 3, then that's extra value added onto this trade. And I'll add in a 2022 second round pick, where the draft is going to be pretty deep that year. And the Sens probably won't be a cup contender by that time. At the same time, though, the Sens still have one of the deepest prospect pools in the league, and they could even add on some more pieces if that's not enough. And that's it for today's video. Jack Eichel has been in trade rumors for, I would say, around 2 years now, and this summer might be the year that he is actually out of town. And he's going to be 25 in the fall, and he's spent 6 years in Buffalo, and it has been absolute misery every single year and disappointment all throughout the organization. So I think if a trade proposal gets brought up to him, I don't think he's going to deny it, and I don't think he's going to fight to stay in the beautiful city of Buffalo. But what did you think of these mock trades? Were there any teams that I missed? And please leave a like down below and comment down below and hit subscribe for my next video that's going to be coming up within the next week. And that's it for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.